Have you ever pondered how our personal relationships are so much like the relationships between countries? Just as we, as individuals, have friends, adversaries, and complicated relationships that defy easy labels, so too do nations. Consider this: we all have friends. Friends with whom we share common interests, values, and goals. For nations, these are their allies, like the United States and Canada, sharing a close and amicable relationship given their geographical proximity and economic ties. Similarly, we have friends with whom we share a history of cooperation, much like China and Pakistan's economic and strategic partnership. However, just as in personal relationships, nations too have their differences. Just as we may disagree with a friend over an opinion or an action, countries also have their disputes. Look at the United States and China. They are major trading partners, yet significant differences exist on issues like trade practices, human rights, and territorial disputes. And then there are relationships that are, well, complicated. Just as you might have a friend you argue with, yet can't imagine life without, nations too have relationships that are marked by both cooperation and competition. Take China and India, for instance. Their relations are complex, marked by economic cooperation and competition, as well as border disputes. But it's not all about friends and disputes. Just as in our personal lives, we have relationships that evolve over time. Like Russia and Israel, who historically were not close, have seen increased coordination and cooperation in recent years. And remember, just like us, nations also have their interests. They pursue these interests in the context of their relationships. Just as we may seek to reconcile differences with a friend for a shared goal, nations too find common ground despite their differences. In essence, nations are not so different from us. They too have their friends, their adversaries, their complicated relationships, and their interests. They too navigate the complex web of relations just as we do in our personal lives. Just as we navigate our personal relationships, nations too maneuver their relationships on the global stage. Imagine two friends, John and Mike, who have been pals since childhood. They grew up together, sharing everything from toys to dreams, and their bond was something special, something unbreakable. But as they journeyed into adolescence, their interests began to diverge. John developed a passion for art and literature, while Mike became engrossed in sports and technology. Their once shared dreams started to look very different. Yet, despite their evolving interests, they remained friends. Their bond, though stretched, never snapped. They learned to navigate the changing terrain of their friendship, finding common ground in their shared history and mutual respect. Then came the biggest test of all: adulthood. John moved to a bustling city to pursue a career in graphic design, while Mike stayed back in their small town, opening a sports equipment shop. Their worlds were now poles apart. The circumstances had changed, and so had their interactions. Their conversations became less frequent, their meetings fewer. But they never lost touch. This is a bit like how international relations work. Countries like John and Mike may start off with common interests and shared goals. But as time passes, their priorities may change. The United States and China, for instance, began their relationship with strong economic ties. But as their national interests evolved, so did their relationship, leading to both cooperation and competition. Similarly, just as John and Mike's relationship changed, when their circumstances changed, so do international relationships. The relationship between Russia and the United States, for instance, has seen periods of intense rivalry and cautious cooperation, shaped by the changing geopolitical landscape. Yet through all these changes, relationships endure. They may not look the same as they did at the beginning, but they continue to exist, to evolve, to influence. John and Mike, despite their differences, remain friends. They've found a way to maintain their bond while pursuing their individual paths. So, like John and Mike, countries also experience shifts in their relationships. And just like these two friends, countries too must navigate these shifts with understanding, respect, and diplomacy. But what happens when interests diverge or conflicts arise? Let's take a step back and revisit the story of John and Mike. They were the best of friends, sharing interests, dreams, and pizza slices. But then a conflict arose. John wanted to start a business together, while Mike wanted to pursue further studies. Their paths diverged, and the once inseparable duo found themselves at odds. This situation isn't unique to John and Mike. In fact, it's a common occurrence in relationships all around the world, including those between nations. Just as John and Mike had disagreements, countries too face conflicts over various issues. Take, for example, the United States and China. They are major trading partners, sharing economic interests much like our friends shared pizza slices. But they also have significant differences on issues like trade practices, human rights, and territorial disputes. These disagreements can strain their relationship, sometimes leading to trade wars or diplomatic standoffs, much like the strain that John and Mike experienced in their friendship. Or consider the complex dynamics between China and India. Despite their economic cooperation, they have had border disputes, reminding us of the territorial issues that arose when John wanted to expand their business into Mike's favorite study spot. And then there's the relationship between the United States and Russia, characterized by disagreements on issues such as Ukraine, Syria, and allegations of Russian interference in U.S. elections. This tension mirrors the disagreements between John and Mike over their future paths. These examples illustrate how conflicts or disagreements can strain relationships, whether between individuals or nations. But it's important to remember that disagreements are not the end. They are often just a part of the journey, a test of the resilience of the relationship. So whether it's John and Mike debating their futures or countries navigating their way through complex international issues, conflicts are a part of the narrative. They can either break the relationship or strengthen it, depending on how they're managed. Conflict, therefore, is a part of any relationship, be it between individuals or nations. In spite of conflicts, why do we often stick together? A question that's as relevant to the playground as it is to the global stage. Let's consider the story of John and Mike, two friends who, despite their disagreements, always found a way to cooperate. Whether it was for a school project, a soccer match, or navigating the challenges of growing up, John and Mike understood that by pooling their resources, skills, and knowledge, they could achieve more together than they ever could alone. This principle, so evident in our everyday lives, is mirrored on a grand scale in international relations. Nations, much like individuals, have their differences, cultural, political, economic. Yet, they find ways to cooperate. Why? Because cooperation brings a host of benefits. Firstly, it can lead to economic growth. Trade partnerships allow countries to access new markets, boost their industries, and foster economic interdependence. This is something we've seen in the relationship between the United States and China, two of the world's largest economies. Despite their differences, they continue to engage in trade for mutual economic gains. Secondly, cooperation can enhance security. By working together, nations can address shared threats and maintain regional stability. This has been evident in the strategic partnerships between China and Pakistan, or between the United States and Israel, where cooperation has been key to addressing security concerns. Lastly, cooperation can facilitate problem solving. In the face of global challenges like climate change, pandemics, or nuclear proliferation, nations must work together. The agreement between the US and Iran on Iran's nuclear program is a testament to the power of diplomatic cooperation in resolving complex issues. In the end, it all comes down to this. Cooperation is a survival strategy. It's a way to navigate the complexities of the world, to achieve shared goals, to resolve conflicts, and to build a better future. In the grand tapestry of international relations, as in the simple story of John and Mike, we find that cooperation, then, is the glue that often holds relationships together for both individuals and nations. So what can we learn from all of this? From friendships to global alliances, relationships are the threads that intricately weave the tapestry of our lives. They are not just bonds between individuals or nations. They are intricate webs of shared histories, common goals, and mutual interests. They are labyrinths of cooperation and competition, understanding and misunderstanding, respect and disregard. Let's take a moment to reflect on the stories we've shared. We've journeyed through the complexities of relationships, witnessed the growth and challenges of friendships, and explored the power of cooperation on both small and large scales. Each tale, each interaction, each decision contributes to the rich mosaic of our shared human experience. The global stage is a mirror of our own lives, reflecting the same dynamics we experience in our personal relationships. The dance between the United States and China, the camaraderie between China and Russia, the intricate bonds between the United States and Israel, all echo the same themes of cooperation, competition, and sometimes conflict we see in our day-to-day lives. But just as in our personal relationships, the essence of these global relationships lies not in their simplicity but in their complexity. It's in the dynamic interplay of shared interests and differing perspectives, in the delicate balance between cooperation and competition, and in the constant evolution driven by changing circumstances and shifting priorities. And like our personal relationships, these international bonds are not static. They grow, they transform, they face challenges, and sometimes they even break. But in each interaction, in each negotiation, in each moment of conflict or cooperation, there lies a lesson, a story, a piece of the puzzle that makes up our shared global narrative. So remember, whether it's a friendship or a global alliance, every relationship is a journey. It's a dance of dynamics, a symphony of interactions, a tapestry of shared moments. And it's this journey, this dance, this symphony that brings color and depth to our lives and to our world. In the end, relationships, in all their complexity and dynamism, are what make our world, both personal and global, so fascinating and diverse.